Mahvira Swami ki Jai Jai Bajrangabali Jai 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 Hanuman. Jai Sitaram, everyone. Again, a very warm welcome to each and every one this morning who've chosen to attend face-to-face at Satsang in the Mandir of 40 Todd Street, San Fernando, Krishna Mandir. And a warm welcome as well to those persons who are joining us on the online platform, whether it be on YouTube or on Facebook. We have been experiencing a little bit of technical difficulty this morning, so I do hope you would bear with us and as we sort those difficulties out. This morning, I want to start off by extending very deep and profound condolences to two families who are indeed pivotal and foundational families of this Mandir. Firstly, I want to extend condolences to Jenny, Mrs. Jenny Babulal, who is here this morning, and the entire Suku family. Would have been members of the Mandir, and the young boys would have been members of the youth group. And in a very tragic circumstance, they would have lost their mother, the late Florence Suku, this week. Her Antishi Sanskar would have been performed on Friday. And our prayers and our condolences go out to Ross and to Randy and Ronnie, and indeed to the entire Suku family, and by extension to Jenny and Vishnu, who are both here with us this morning. May Bhagwan provide that strength and comfort needed to the family at this time. This morning as well, we want to extend our condolences to the Chandrajit family. Balrup Chandrajit, who has been a member of the Mandir for a long while, at one time was a member of the management committee. He too succumbed to an illness that he's been battling for some time. And he succumbed 2 days ago. And this morning is the Antishti Sanskar for Balrup, and we want to extend our condolences to his Dulhan Sherry and to the children Kavir and Lena, and indeed to the extended family as well. May Bhagwan provide them all with that strength needed at this time. Many other persons have indeed lost their loved ones through illnesses that they may have been treating with, as in the case of these two individuals who've passed. And then more so, many persons have lost their loved ones as a result of the COVID virus and pandemic. And this morning we want to dedicate our service to all of those persons who have gone on to a new chapter, who have gone to the warm embrace of Lord Krishna, and also for their families, their respective families who are left behind, for them to derive that strength and that comfort and that solace. And there's always a duality in life, because while we extend our condolences in that regard, this morning I also want to take the opportunity to extend birthday greetings to one of our dear devotees, Mr. Ranjit Jamuna, who is celebrating his 83rd birthday. Uncle Ji and the late Auntie Ji would have been very regular devotees of the Mandir, but again, because of risk factors associated with COVID, the decision has been taken by him and his family not to attend face-to-face services, at least for the time being. So this is the duality in life, where we have light and darkness, where we have good and evil, where we have truth and untruth, and where we have life and death. This is the duality that we are faced with, and this is the duality that is part and parcel of this life. This morning, therefore, as we engage in our devotions, we will be looking at 2 shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, and we would indeed be reminding ourselves of our purpose here on this earth while we are on this physical journey, divine beings on this physical journey, and to derive that sense of direction and renewed inspiration amidst all of these challenges. I invite everyone to sit upright, join your palms together as we engage in mantra recitation. Hari Om Shri Krishnai Govindai Namo Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangulang dayake kirim yat kripatamaham bande paramanandamamadavam vasudevasutam devam kamsachanuramardanam devaki paramanandam Krishnam Bande Jagadguru Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyajimam Namaskuru Mam Ivyashi Satyam Te Pratijani Priyusime Sarvadharam Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshyashami masucham. Om Shri Krishnai Govindai Namo Namaha. Bhagavad Gita is one of our foundational scriptures in Sanatana Dharma. We see the Murti of Lord Krishna before us, very resplendent. He's standing there with a smiling face. He's smiling there holding a basuri in his hand. That basuri, that is his instrument, which when blown emits a very melodious, very lovely, very serene and peaceful melody. He is instructing us, Krishna Bhagavan, the Lord himself, through his conversation with Arjuna that takes place on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That battlefield, that is more than just a literal battle, but it is indeed philosophical, because it represents to each and every one of us the turmoil, the doubt, the anxiety, the stress, the loss, the grief that we all face in our lives. It represents that battle between those things that are positive, as I mentioned before, and those things that are not so. And in the midst of that battle, Arjuna gives up. He gives up and is unwilling to continue with his struggle. He's unwilling to continue with his purpose. He's unwilling to continue with his duty. And so it is left to Shri Krishna to firstly listen to Arjuna, to listen to what his questions and what his doubts are, to listen to what his concerns and what his sorrows are, to understand the perspective of his friend and of his devotee, and then finally, when that is understood, to speak. And to speak in a fashion which is not condescending, to speak in a fashion which is not untoward, but to speak in a fashion that is loving, compassionate, empathetic, and to provide that direction. This conversation alone speaks volumes to us about how we should interact and what we should do as persons who can uplift, as persons who can assist, and as persons who can direct others in the midst of their struggle and in their grief. And so it is, brothers and sisters, it is incumbent upon each and every one of us that when we are able to, when circumstances call for us to be there, to be our brother's keeper, that we do not shy away from that responsibility, but that we indeed step up and provide that solace. And so publicly I want to extend my commendations to Vishnu this morning. I listened, because I was not able to attend, to Vishnu's very warm and glowing and positive conversation with the family of the late Florence Suku at the funeral ceremony. And I must say, Vishnu, that my heart filled with pride to know that you are that type of individual. And I say this because sometimes it is that we wait until persons are no more with us physically to pay commendations and tributes. We wait until persons are unable to perform the responsibilities that they do perform, to only then recognize their value. And so, brothers and sisters, it is important for us to recognize the value of each other and to recognize the good and noble deeds that our brothers and our sisters are performing and to assist them in performing that even more. And so, Krishna Bhagwan speaks to Arjuna in this battlefield, directing him about the things that he should do to become better, to be better, to recognize and realize his true potential and his true capability, and to overcome his doubt. Similar conversations are witnessed in Ramcharitmanas, when Jambavant speaks to Hanumanji on the seashore, when Hanumanji himself and all of the other Vanars were unable to fathom whether they could cross this ocean in order to ascertain whether Sita Mata was indeed being held captive. And it is Jambavant who reminded, in a very gentle way, but in a very instructive way, Hanumanji of his true capability. And we know how that katha unfolds. And so Krishna Bhagwan throughout Bhagavad Gita directs Arjuna about the things that he should do, about what are the qualities and traits that he should develop, about recognizing that each individual is different in their own way, and therefore the path to attain that ultimate goal is different for everyone. In our Vedas it is written, Ekam Sat, Vipra Bharu Bharanti. The truth is one, but wise persons would know that truth by different names, different means, and to achieve it by different pathways. And Krishna Bhagwan therefore instructs Arjuna about these different pathways, or yoga, it is said. The pathway of knowledge, the pathway of action, the pathway of devotion. All of these are different pathways that lead to the same goal. And he says to him in the closing slokas of Bhagavad Gita, in verses 65 and 66, which were just chanted, that whatever you do, O Arjuna, do it as an offering to me. Whatever your actions are, whatever your tasks are in this material world, do it as an offering to God. And if you were to do that, thinking about me and thinking about me alone, then all of your difficulties, all of your sorrows, all of your problems would be removed, and you will surely come to me, for you are dear to me. This is my promise to you. So Bhagavan Krishna is telling this to Arjuna. Sometimes we have the misconception that this means that I should give up all of my material duties and tasks. I should not go to school. Why bother study? Why bother get another education? Why bother to get a job? Why bother to work and earn an income? Why should I care for my spouse or my family? Why should I discharge my duty to my community and to my fellow man? But that is not at all what Krishna Bhagwan is saying. He is saying to each and every one of us, regardless of where we are in our lives, regardless of what our occupations or our stations in life are, that we are to fulfill our duty and our responsibility with full vigor and ardor and faith. But in doing so, we must do so for the proper purpose, and that is as an offering to God. That is so that we can become better people, not by our own selfish actions, but indeed by our selfless actions. And when we think and we perform and we act in that way, then we are indeed paying tribute to God. So I want to pay tribute to those two individuals. Florence, a loving wife and mother, sister, daughter, friend. Balrup, likewise, loving husband, father, friend, community activist. Many, many things done by these two individuals, leaving a legacy, a very rich legacy. And so they have concluded this physical journey, but our tradition tells us that their journey is not over. Their journey continues on. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, tells us that very firmly. And so what is the lesson for us? The lesson for us, brothers and sisters, is what do we do? What do you and I do, being persons who are still on this journey? What do we do? And it's very simple. We should strive to be good persons. And if we are good persons, as we all are, strive to be better. Strive to be better. We should strive to do the good actions and do the good deeds, and if we are doing those, then do more. It's very simple. Be good, do good. Very, very simple. And so this is something that I know we all here would practice, but all of us, without exception, can do more and we can be more. And this morning, in a very powerful way, and I know I've been saying this repeatedly, and sometimes people would think, well, this pundit is really like a broken record. He's saying the same thing over and over and over again. But I must say it. I will continue to say it. The lessons of this COVID-19 pandemic are right literally in our faces. And I will use this country as an example. In March of last year, when the first cases started coming. At the time and just prior to that, when cases were taking place across, persons didn't believe this pandemic not real. It's not going to affect us in Trinidad and Tobago. Carnival in 2020 was held on that premise. That there's no danger. That even if you get this virus, and I will quote one of the doctors, the symptoms were mild and you will overcome it very easily. Because little was known at that time. Little was known at that time. But what do we have nearly 2 years after? Millions of people globally have been impacted by this virus. Directly, and when I say directly, having gotten it, having succumbed to it. Millions. Billions more have been impacted indirectly. Every person has been and continues to be impacted. If we go to the groceries now and we see the escalating food prices, which are right in our faces, this is an indirect result of this pandemic. We hear about things like the break in supply chain and supply chain difficulties, and we need to understand what that means. If you are sick, you cannot go out to work. If you cannot go out to work, you cannot perform your function, and therefore things back up. Think about your own household. Think about the mothers and the fathers. If you're sick and lying in bed, who washing the dishes? Who making the food? Who cleaning the house? Who doing those routine things that the children sometimes take for granted? No one. And so it backs up. In the same way, these are the things that are happening. So little was known. But today, everything is not known. We know that. Things are still being learned. But what we do know are the many, many, many persons who are trying their utmost best to make things better. The scientists, the doctors, the nurses, the ambulance drivers, the pharmacists, and so many others too numerous to mention. So they are doing their part. Several months ago, earlier this year, if you were to ask anybody in this country, what can we do to help eradicate the difficulties by this virus, the number one answer by everybody, get a vaccine. And there was widespread condemnation about the health authorities about why didn't you all get the vaccines? Why didn't you all procure the vaccines? You all have fallen down on the job, and a whole litany of complaints pervaded the entire society. Very truthful complaints, very valid complaints. Then vaccines started coming into the country. And persons were rushing, standing up in the rain, complaining, oh, I need to get the vaccine, I must have this vaccine. Old and young alike lined up outside the health centers and so on. And so vaccines came and the distribution took place. Yes, with hiccups, but it took place. But we are now at a juncture in our country where the supply of vaccines of different kinds are widely available. You could get it in any health center, in any mass vaccination site. You can get the vaccines. But now what do we have? Of a population of approximately 1.4 million people, we have just under half, 600 and something thousand, who have been vaccinated. And we have more than half of our population who have refused to take the vaccine. And I say this without apology for anybody's rights. That is untenable. It is untenable. Because what we have now is misinformation and downright foolishness driving that hesitancy. Misinformation and downright foolishness. Let's speak about misinformation. Well, why should I take the vaccine? Because if you get the vaccine, you could still get COVID. True. Nobody ever said that if you get the vaccine, you would not get COVID. That was not said at all. What it did say is that your chances of getting severe symptoms, your chances of being hospitalized, and further your chances of death are mitigated and minimized. That's what it says. And that's what the data and science shows unequivocally. In excess of 93% of the persons in hospital are unvaccinated. In excess of 93% of persons in hospitals are unvaccinated. Let that resonate a little bit. And I'm saying this to you all, not because you all are the ones who are hesitant. You all have all been vaccinated. I'm saying this to you so that you can be ambassadors to try and persuade persons who are not. That's why I'm saying it. I'm saying it so that in the event that there are persons looking on who are hesitant, they may be persuaded by the reality before us. This week was extremely gloomy. We've had the highest number of cases ever, over 700 in one day recorded. Our ICUs now are overflowing because we simply do not have the capacity. And as a result of that, persons who do not have COVID, but who may need ICU care, are being deprived. You know, there was a story that came from the United States, and I'll use an example, of a gentleman who was really a very firm anti-vaxxer. He didn't want to take the vaccine. Young man in his early years. Doesn't want to take it and is going on about it. And he ended up in the ICU with COVID. In the ICU. And his attending doctor told him, you have said so many negative things about the vaccine and about the conspiracy theories and all of the things, and here now you are with COVID in the ICU. And in my emergency department, I have a 7-year-old child who is just a victim of a traffic or a motor vehicle accident, 7 years old, true story, in the emergency, who needs the ICU space that you occupy. And you had the opportunity to prevent this from happening to yourself, and you didn't. And by so doing, you are now depriving a 7-year-old a legitimate space. That is what I mean when Krishna Bhagwan tells us, do good, be good, not only for ourselves, but for others. So before us, brothers and sisters, is an opportunity to be good and to do good. If you profess to be a Hindu and follow Sanatana Dharma, then take the vaccine. I'll say it as bluntly as that. Because in doing that, you are doing good and being good for the benefit of others. And stop this foolishness about, well, is my right? Is my human right? I'm a lawyer by training. And we could talk about rights from now to thy kingdom come, but rights come with responsibility. There's nothing like an unparalleled or untrammeled right. It comes with a responsibility. My right. I could go down the highway and drive on the opposite side of the road and say, that's my right. I could go onto the highway and drive at 180 miles per hour and say, that's my right. Because no law should affect my right, but we know that that's not the case. Laws are meant to regulate human conduct and behavior. Because if laws were not there, then there would be anarchy. If laws were not there, then there would be anarchy. And it is no different. Why in this society, 2 years ago, if you had a child, to get that child into the school system, you had no difficulty with complying with the fact that you had to be vaccinated across a spectrum of potential illnesses. And you had to produce that vaccination card in order for your child to go to school. But now, all of a sudden, we have a real problem. We're taking a vaccine that is WHO approved and on the same footing as all of the other vaccines that you get. Because it's my right. Well, it is also my right not to be infected by you. So how does that play out? And if we think about it and we look at it, that could lead to tremendous chaos. And there are little signs of it happening right now. And before that escalates, I want to urge again persons to take the vaccine. And having taken the vaccine, to still adhere for the short, medium, and longer term to the practices that we have all now had to adopt. And what are those? The simple things like wearing the face masks, as all of us are doing this morning. The simple things as washing your hands as frequently as is needed based upon the surfaces that you touch. The simple things like maintaining that physical distance between you and the other person if they are not members of your family. But more than that, this morning, to remember, especially with the upcoming season, to avoid large gatherings and congregations that are not necessary. That is why the regulations are still in place. For example, here, that we ought not to have more than 50% capacity. And that is something that we will maintain. So that is not an excuse to have a party at your home and just throw that restriction out of the window. That is why so many persons are making the sacrifice, because they've lost their loved ones. They recognize that we must still abide by the rules, and they have deferred large gatherings, large funerals, and large ceremonies because they understand their responsibility. And if some can understand that, then why not all of us? Why not all of us? So this morning, I say to you that the teachings in our scripture are very real and are very valid in this 21st century. Our scripture, which is thousands of years old, teaches us lessons which are applicable today in the midst of a pandemic. And I want to urge us all here this morning to be ambassadors of that lesson and to share that message and to encourage others who may be hesitant. If you have a real hesitancy, or if you have any hesitancy, then for God's sake, get the advice of a medical professional, not stories on social media. And be guided by those. And make no mistake, get a second and third opinion if you want to, because there are some doctors that still believe, I could give you ivermectin and you'll get better. And the data is many people are dying as a result of that. So let us be real. Let us understand what is before us. Yesterday, 28 people that we know of died because of COVID. Yesterday alone. And many more will continue to succumb unless we change, for the majority of our population, this obscenity that is called hesitancy. And I make no apologies this morning for my strong language. None. Because I think the time has come. People are not trusting, it seems, of politicians. People now seemingly are not trusting of doctors either. So let's see if those persons will not be trusting of religious leaders as well. So I add my voice to that chorus of religious leaders who are encouraging persons to get vaccinated. To get vaccinated. We do not want to allow this mandir to be a place, as others have come, which says, if you're not vaccinated, no entry. And that will come if people don't listen. That will come if people don't listen. So please let us do the correct thing. I end on that very strong note, and I hand over now to members of the group. For the next 10 minutes, we will be having bhajan. So if you would like to perform arati, please, you're doing so in an expeditious fashion. Take the gloves, place them on, whoever is leading your family. So please start coming up if anybody is coming up. Maintain your spacing so you can have one family per murti. And then when you finish your arati, please dispose of your gloves, sanitize your hands, and return to your seats. Sitaram all.
तन में बसे है राम, मेरे मन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन में बसे है राम। चीर के छाती बोले अपनी, चीर के छाती बोले अपनी, पवन पुत्र हनुमान, बोलो पवन पुत्र हनुमान, मेरे मन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन में बसे है राम। सीता हरण किया रावण ने, प्रभु जी से अकुलाई, हनुमान ने सीता जी को प्रभु संदेश सुनाई, हनुमान जी करके आई, हनुमान जी करके आई, प्रभु जी की गुणगान, बोलो पवन पुत्र हनुमान, मेरे मन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन में बसे है राम। लागी लक्ष्मण जी को शक्ति, देखा प्रभु घबराई, भोर से पहले हनुमान जी धौलागिरी ले आए, ऊंचा बैठे लक्ष्मण जी लेकर, ऊंचा बैठे लक्ष्मण जी लेकर, श्री राम का नाम, बोलो पवन पुत्र हनुमान, मेरे मन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन में बसे है राम। वानर सेना देख के रावण की सेना घबराई, पलक झपक के हनुमान ने लंका में आग लगाई, बोले प्रभु के साथ मिताकर, बोले प्रभु के साथ मिताकर, रावण का अधिकार, बोलो पवन पुत्र हनुमान, मेरे मन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन में बसे है राम, मेरे मन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन में बसे है राम। चीर की छाती बोले अपनी, चीर की छाती बोले अपनी, पवन पुत्र हनुमान, बोलो पवन पुत्र हनुमान, मेरे मन में बसे है राम, मेरे तन सगाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई दुर्योधन को मेवा त्यागो दुर्योधन को मेवा त्यागो दुर्योधन को मेवा त्यागो दुर्योधन को मेवा त्यागो सागरी दुर्धर खाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई ज्योत बल शबरी के खाई ज्योति बल शबरी के खाई ज्योत बल शबरी के खाई ज्योति बल शबरी के खाई बहुविधि प्रेम लगाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई ऊंची प्रेम सगाई प्रेम की बस अर्जुन रत नाथ्यो 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 भूल गए चतुराई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई ऊंची प्रेम सगाई सूरदास इस नायक नाची सूरदास इस नायक नाची सूरदास इस नायक नाची सूरदास इस नायक नाची कहे लग कर ये बड़ाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई हरि बोल 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 राधे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरि बोल 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 हरि बोल
We stand for final arting.
ओम जय जगदीश हरि स्वामी जय जगदीश हरि भक्त जनों के संकट नास जनों के संकट क्षण में
Hari Om. We clasp our hands and assume that position of reverence. As we conclude our satsang this morning, O Prabhu, we come before you as your children, seeking your divine intervention in our lives, to offer to us that comfort and that solace and that inspiration when things are not going well. To remember you in times of joy and in celebration, to remember that you are indeed all around and you are within us at all times. O Prabhu, you are mother, you are father, you are family, you are friend, you are knowledge, you are wealth, you are everything to us. We surrender ourselves completely to your will. Hari Om. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Cha Sika Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Om Asatu Ma Sargamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. प्रेम से बोले श्री गणेश भगवान की जय, उमापति महादेव की जय, बिंद्रावन बिहारी लाल की जय, आज शक्ति जगदम्बा देवी मैया की जय, श्री पवन पुत्र हनुमान की जय, प्रेम से बोले श्री सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय. Turn to those around you, सब कोई जय सीताराम, जय सीताराम, जय सीताराम. May Bhagwan be with us all. May we have a very safe and productive week ahead. We look forward to seeing you all again with us next week Sunday, again from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. Please join with us either physically face-to-face following protocols or online on YouTube or on our Facebook channel. Also be reminded, those of you who wish to perform Havan or Puja on a Sunday morning, please give your names to, I would ask Mr. Sinanan if he can take those. Or if you want to make any contributions or donations towards the Mandir and its activities, we welcome those. We appreciate those contributions. Please, again, make those to Mr. Sinanan after service. Sitaram, everyone. Have a very safe and productive week ahead.